Hello everyone and welcome to today's presentation on our action research plan to try and improve literacy across the content area. My name is Jordan Marvel. I will be your facilitator for this meeting and welcome. So what's our purpose today? Our purpose is to increase literacy and research skills throughout our students by focusing on reading and writing within the content areas. Our problem statement is that our ELA test scores are low. They've been low for years here at Sussex Central. And as you're going to see in the data later, only 1/3 of our students pass the state benchmark. Over 50% of students pass this benchmark by the state standard, and only 1/3 of them do at our school. So how can we incorporate literacy into the other content areas to try and improve our scores and build skills within our students? We researched this by coming up with a few questions. Our first question is, how can a common language be developed between the ELA and social studies courses based on the Common Core state standards? We would like to try and align the social studies curriculum with the ELA curriculum so that we're at least teaching the same basic skills. And I believe we can do this by analyzing the Common Core standards again and diving into a little more depth with them and understanding why. So 2, what strategies can be used in social studies classrooms to promote literacy skills? Once we understand why we want to use the Common Core curriculum, what can we then do in class? What would that look like in class? And then our third one is, how can online learning be structured to promote literacy skills? This might be the most challenging one, but as we all know, we're all going to be remote at least until November of this year. No research is complete without a literature review. Here are the 3 sources I analyzed. You will go through these later, but the first one deals with the PEA strategy, which is point, evidence, and analysis. And it's just kind of like the ACE or SPRITE or any other acronym that helps you or the students remember how to structure their paper. So this is a great one that you could use and hang it up on the wall and make it into a graphic organizer or into an anchor chart with your kids. The second one was about social studies teachers actually giving focus to the Common Core state standards. We've all analyzed them, we've all used them, but have we really given them the attention they want? Have we bought into them? If we haven't bought into them, then they're not going to work. And then the last one was about how we can actually make online learning meaningful to students and help them build literacy skills even while we're teaching online. So I collected 3 different sets of data that you're about to see. Data 1 includes different standardized test scores. Data 2 was a questionnaire sent to the ELA department, and Data 3 was a questionnaire sent to former students. So without waiting, let's just dive right into it. SAT scores. We've all seen these. We all don't like them. This isn't anything new to us. Unfortunately, only 33% of our kids pass. That means just under 600 out of our over 1,800 students pass it. And we cannot use the excuse that we test everyone. We do have ELL learners in this school, and we do have students who have special needs in this school, but they do not make up 2/3 of our population. We need to take ownership that we have to do a better job of teaching our students literacy skills in our classes. We can't only focus on our content anymore. We have to really try and make sure that we're building skills within our students that can last a lifetime. The second one was just from my classroom, which was the DBQ scores. If you don't know what a DBQ is, it stands for a document-based question. And it has the students analyze 7 sources and apply it to an argumentative essay. So they have to try and prove their point by using evidence from these sources, and you should be able to use the sources to answer either side, either the affirmative or the negative. And the point is to try and see if the students can use all of the sources, can explain why the source itself is important and not just quote the author and leave. When I gave a practice one to my students, 25 out of 25 got the thesis and the claim, which is great. I would expect all of them to get it. If half of them weren't able to write a thesis, I'd be in real trouble. But none of them scored any other points. I wasn't too worried about criteria B, which is contextualization. That's very specific to the history class, and that one's not so hard to get. But the evidence and the analysis was going to require a lot of work. The students need to not only be able to properly paraphrase, because they actually don't score quotes. If you use a quote, it's not good enough. You have to then paraphrase the article anyway. So we try and teach the students not to use quotes because they don't actually score points. And let's be honest, our students seem to be able to quote something, give one line of explanation, and then be done with it. As Joe Macaluso said, and I think the quote is later, they act like they've achieved something great when all they do is really an elementary task. So I noticed that I really needed to focus on the evidence part and the analysis and reasoning part, explaining why these sources matter and how they actually apply to the point they're trying to make. So breakdown of the rubric scores, as you can see, all 23 students got the thesis and none of them got anything else. It made it pretty obvious where I should start. So the data set 2 we're going to talk about is a common language between the ELA department and the social studies department. When I reached out, it turned out that the ELA department did not have a common language among themselves. This led me to believe it was going to be a slightly difficult task to try and come up with a common language between the social studies and ELA department when their department didn't have one themselves. But that's okay, because we could also not just look at the language, but look at what is it that our kids struggle with in both classes. And if we could focus on those same skills, we don't necessarily need a common language if our goals are in line. So here are the findings. The ELA department does not have a common language within itself, but we do share similar problems, like students tend to quote and explain and never paraphrase. Here's the quote from Joe Mack. Our students have a tendency to just repeat the information from the piece of support they found and close out the paragraph as if they accomplished some great feat when really all they've done is performed an elementary task. And if you know Mr. Macaluso, you know he's correct and he tells it like it is. Our students at all levels seem to think that if they just quote one line and then say, the author said this, quote, this is important because it shows the author was correct, end. That's not what we want them to do. We want them to be able to synthesize the information and actually understand why they're using it, not just leaving a quote and walking away. And the third set of data was a questionnaire I sent out to some former students to ask them what did they do in school that made them a better writer or researcher. And two common themes appeared. There were some other ones, like one student said she learned more words doesn't make your paper better, and that a thesaurus could actually make you sound less intelligent than more, because if you don't use the words properly, it's just wrong. So, but these two were common across most of the students. One was organization skills, how to actually organize your sources, how to collect information and organize it in front of them so they can put it in order. One student mentioned using colored index cards so that they can see themes throughout their sources, so they know all the blue cards are supporting one claim, all the red cards are supporting a different claim. And then the other one was actually planning out the research. Not many of our students that aren't in the upper level ever have to think about planning out an entire research paper. So the idea that the students actually need to learn how to properly map out a paper, it shouldn't be shocking, but isn't something we always focus on. We teach them how to, we do concept maps. We have them outline their paper before they start, but have we ever taught them to outline their research? I'm sure some of us have, but I know for me, it's something I definitely need to focus on. So what do we do with all this data? We make a plan, of course. Below is my action table. So the top three are the goals, followed by the objectives, followed by things we can control and things we cannot control. So the goals are to obviously improve our literacy skills, make online learning meaningful and standards driven, And then we need to teach students how to effectively research a topic question. Our objectives are students will be able to effectively paraphrase a source. Students can determine the validity of online sources and not just accepting the first thing they find. And they can organize their findings into a paper in proper APA format. What do we need to do to make this happen, though? We need to collaborate. We need to collaborate not only between the social studies department, but between other departments. We need to make sure that our teacher-structured content is aligned to our learning goals, is scaffolded, and we give feedback, and that our students have access to technology. Some of that we cannot control, but we have given out a lot of Chromebooks, and our students do have phones, so we can use that to our knowledge. If we know the limitations of a Chromebook, we can structure our content to not go outside those limitations. Some things we cannot control is the actual limited access to student technology. I've had students get knocked off the internet while giving a Zoom lecture, and there's nothing we can do about it. I just have to fill them in later, and it's okay. It's okay. It really is. It's going to be fine. Our lower student reading levels are not something we can really help at this point. We can try. We can lower the Lexile levels, especially if we have ELL students or students with special needs. Obviously, we need to accommodate them. But across the board, our students' reading levels are lower. That's reflected in the SAT scores. And we can try and reach them by lowering the Lexile levels, but we should also try and challenge them and bring it up. And then, as of right now, many of my upperclassmen students have jobs during the school week. So because everything is online, there are going to be students who miss my Monday Zooms, and there are going to be students who are turning in work, after hours, Tuesday through Friday, and that's okay. There's nothing we can do about it. We just got to roll with it. So here are our plans for the future. We got to develop some commonalities between the ELA and Social Studies department, and really, if we're not going to focus on language, what we can do is align our expectations. We can teach the basics, at least, in a similar way, so that we are teaching what we need to teach for social studies content and doing it the way we need for social studies. But if the base goal is the same and the basic skill is the same, then we can align that with ELA so that the students are getting it twice, and maybe they don't turn off their ELA brain when they walk into our room and we have to remind them everything about English. We also have to develop a plan to teach students how to organize their research paper or project. So we have to teach them how to develop research questions, how to organize a paper, how to look for sources. Instead of just Googling your question, think about all the aspects that apply to that question. Break it down by topic and then look for those. And then we have to use strategies like the PEA strategy, maybe the ACE strategy, Sprite, all of that stuff we could use to try and teach them how to properly use a source, cite a source, and actually understand that process and not just plug it in to get the grade. And the final thing that we should do is introduce APA format, because once they get out of high school, if they go into the real world, they might not use APA format or anything, but if they go to college, especially grad school, they're probably going to use APA instead of MLA. So our parting thoughts. We are the boots on the ground, folks. We're the frontline workers when it comes to helping our students. We're trying to collect all this data so that we can use it. We can put it in our teacher toolbox and we can try and make a difference. If we scaffold our instruction, if we take into account the limitations our students have right now, we really can make these 2 months meaningful so that maybe students don't hate school and we don't hate teaching. And not only that, but our students really can benefit from this. This can be a great opportunity to teach them some skills they're going to use in the future. Online courses, everything. I never thought I would take online courses, and here I am taking a full master's program. So thank you all for sticking around. Here are the references if any of you are interested, and have a great day, everybody, and stay well.